Taking Stock with Pim Fox and Carol Masser. On demand via our Bloomberg Radio Plus app. Free for iPhone and Android devices.
All right, we'll find out if every little thing she does is magic and if what she's said so far is enough magic to get her confirmed as the next head of the U.S. Central Bank. We're talking, of course, about Janet Yellen up on Capitol Hill today, testifying in regards to her nomination. Dorothy Weaver is Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Collins Capital. She joins us on the Ring Central phone line from Coral Gables, Florida. She was a former, she worked actually under Alan Greenspan, the former head of the Federal Reserve Bank, and that was happening out in Miami. And then also with us, David Gulley, professor of economics, Bentley University at Waltham, and by the way, Bentley University is a strategic partner of Bloomberg Radio. Dorothy, let's kick it off with you. So Janet Yellen testifying today, I'm assuming you saw some of it or all of it. How did she do?
Well, I think it was very predictable. She did very well. There were no surprises. And it's her job to be sure there are no surprises. I think the last word that you would use to apply to it was flamboyant. And that is not what we're going to see, and it's not what she wants, because she wants to be very calming, very professional, which she clearly is, and surprises aren't something that I would have expected, and we certainly didn't get any.
David, your thoughts on Janet Yellen today?
I would completely agree with Dorothy. She was very professional, very calm, and in response to several questions, for example, she would not be pinned down on any date to begin the taper. She focused on it being remaining data-based, and she was doing this to make sure that she is consistent in her communications going forward, because she knows that in the past her words got a lot of attention, and now they're going to get even more.
David Gulley, I'm wondering if you can come in on the history of the Federal Reserve a little bit, because we're going to be honoring the 50th anniversary of the assassination of JFK next week. A lot of JFK's legacy has to do with an iconography, the look, the feel, the sound. This is the television and internet age. In this age of transparency, doesn't the chief of the Federal Reserve have to have a little bit of that kind of charisma?
Well, I suppose it would help a little bit on the margins, but the most important thing is for the Fed to run monetary policy that's best for the country. And the way that's done is by having the most experienced and most skilled people doing it, even if they're not necessarily the most forceful advocates, even if they're not the most photogenic or telegenic personalities, as long as they're competent at the end of the day.
Yeah, but aren't these the same people that have been in these kinds of positions in government throughout the financial crisis? And did we hear them warning us that this was going to happen?
Well, to be sure, the Fed, along with, I would remind everybody, lots of other people missed this as well. However, it's pretty likely, as Janet Yellen tried to explain during her hearings today, that the Fed has learned many, many lessons from this and is now paying much more close attention than it has before.
Dorothy Weaver, I mean, do the benefits outweigh the negatives at this point in terms of continuing quantitative easing?
Clearly, that was the message that Janet Yellen was trying to convey, but she could not quantify it. It's impossible to quantify it. We have had very little movement on unemployment, and to what extent is that just people giving up and the participation rate growing?
Or maybe there's a shift.
Is that part-time?
Is there a shift out there? You know, we've had guests come on and say, you know, technology has made it possible to do a lot more with a lot less people, and we're seeing more and more of that, and that is enabling it, you know, for companies to kind of hold off on hiring workers. Is there some of that going on as well?
It absolutely is. For instance, the senator from Ohio was pushing to say, now the really important thing is, are you going to be focusing on housing and on manufacturing, and we're going to bring manufacturing jobs to Ohio. I was just in Ohio visiting a plant. 15% of it is robotic, and it is going up every year. So that is very, very real, and that's why this unemployment goal is so difficult, because a lot of it is structural. There are jobs that just are not going to come back, and we need to really rethink this, to just pick a number and to get at it by making, you know, at the price of people just giving up and dropping out of the labor force is not really what we're trying to accomplish.
David Gulley, what kind of economy is Janet Yellen inheriting?
She is inheriting a somewhat struggling but on the mend economy, partially thanks to Fed monetary policy and partially thanks to normal, ordinary factors that help an economy recover from a recession. One of the things we have going against us is that the empirical evidence suggests that economies coming out of recessions caused by financial crises tend to recover much more slowly than average. And so that's certainly one reason why we're experiencing a relatively slow slog here in terms of recovering from where we started.
So, okay. So what's your best guess, David, for what we get from the Fed next year?
Well, probably we're going to get a little bit more transparency. There is a chance, for example, that instead of just having a press conference once per quarter, we could start getting press conferences after each and every FOMC meeting. That would be a way to increase the volume of communications with the public to try to explain exactly what the Fed would be doing. And this would probably be most important because next year, at some point, there's almost surely the taper is going to start. And once that starts and begins to move forward, then it becomes even more crucial for the Fed to communicate exactly what it's doing and why it's doing it.
Dorothy, doesn't this sound like there'll be an increase in volatility if they're going to be talking to the public on such a regular basis?
Could well be, because clearly the markets are hanging on every word. I mean, we saw what just a hint of just a beginning of tapering did to the markets and how dramatic the reaction was. And as she commented today, the economy is very fragile. Well, if the economy is fragile, the markets are even more fragile and hanging on absolutely every word that's said. Now, on the other hand, will greater transparency mean that you really know anything different and that there's any new information? But there will be a great deal of speculation prior to the announcement, just as there was on the tapering. The movement was prior to, not on the announcement. So it just gives that much more opportunity for markets to try to guess what might be going on and speculate around unknowns.
All right, Dorothy Weaver, thank you so much. Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Collins Capital from Coral Gables, Florida. And David Gulley, Professor of Economics at Bentley University from Waltham. Of course, Bentley University, a strategic partner of Bloomberg Radio. You're, of course, listening to Taking Stock, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
Taking Stock, weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. In New York on Bloomberg 1130. In Boston on 1200 AM and 94.5 FM HD2. Or on Sirius XM Satellite Radio Channel 119. Copyright 2013 Bloomberg LP.